everybody. Apologize for the short notice for the webinar. Just had lots of moving pieces that we're putting together here in the background and wanted to get this out before the midwinter break here for some of us in Saskatchewan. So thanks for attending. And there's lots of members and people of interest that can't make it on the call, but we're going to have this recorded so we can share it later. So we're just going to take a little bit of time today to introduce the team from Ag MRI and Intelinair and the Ag MRI products. So we had the pleasure of working with Intelinair last year for the first formal introduction of this product into Canada. And what Ag MRI is software utilizing various different layers of AI and multiple high resolution satellite images, multiple images taken through the year, about 10 of them, and various different image detection algorithms to help aid in scouting and weed alerts and know what's going on in your field. And I think this is something that has really interesting potential moving forward, especially as farms get larger and more complex and trying to keep your eye on the prize, so to speak, and take care of that very valuable crop. We all know crop prices have gone up a lot, so the value of your crop is a lot higher. And as well, inputs as well have gone up a lot. And so if we can find ways with imagery or in-season adjustments to be more efficient with those inputs, there's a lot of value to be created there too. And so, yeah, there's been lots of improvements made by the Intelinair team on the product, and we're pretty excited about that. And they're getting a lot of traction and growth in the States. So I'll let the Intelinair guys give a little bit more of a background and history of the company. But yeah, thanks for taking the time today. And I'm going to hand it over to Demetrius to give us a little bit of an overview of Intelinair and the program. And then we'll talk a little bit about our experiences and what we're looking to potentially offer into the market this coming season for 2022.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Terry. Yeah, as he said, I'm Demetrius. I'm actually in the States. So in the Indiana area, a little bit of background on the company. Intelinair has been around for, I think it's like 7+ years. They really got their start in kind of like widgets and even in drones actually, and realized that there was a space in ag or a need in ag for kind of that data analytic area, if you will. Got hooked up with a couple professors in Illinois, and that's really where we got our start. And then now since then have progressed and started to add to the company and really hone in on what we can do best, and have actually moved our headquarters to Indiana, kind of where I'm located. So there's a couple different offerings we kind of do. You guys would be most familiar with that satellite offering, which is a really good offering, and we've made a lot of different changes to it. So without further ado, I think we can just get into that. Is that fair, Terry?
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, so well, I think first of all, let's get into kind of what the home screen would look like. And this is a demo application, so things will be more generic. As we progress throughout the presentation, I do have some fields that are in the Canada area that we can dive into a little bit more. But like I said, this is a home screen, very, very easy to maneuver, very informative. There's your field counts here to the top left. Oh, wait, can you guys not see? Whoops. I am.
Yeah, you got to share your screen there.
Yeah. Sorry, I apologize there, guys. Let me see. How do I share here? I'm an avid Google Meets user.
There should be on the row on the bottom there, Demetrius, a share screen option just left of
there.
center.
It is. I see it.
Yeah.
All right. I apologize, everyone. There we go. Are we live now? Now I've lost my... Dan, you're muted. Can everyone see me?
Yeah, there might be a
There you go.
have different options. Okay, now we're seeing your screen.
We're good? All right. Again, sorry everyone.
No worries. No animals were harmed in the making of this made-for-TV movie. We're good.
There you go. So again, this is the home screen. Everything's very simple, easy to manage. List your field that you have in the system. Gives a little bit of data on that field. You have 621 acres here. Housekeeping things to keep in mind. You have a search bar here at the top. Makes it really quick and easy if you wanted to just type in like a keyword, replant, or the field name rather. You can even type in by crop, corn, beans, things like that. On the left-hand side here, you'll notice you have a home screen, which is where we're at. You get into the field aspect here, which will actually show you the fields that you have in the system. A nice map view. It'll bring you to Indiana where I'm at, but you could see up in this range where you have different fields. Notice on this left-hand side, you have a color-coded scale, and what that's actually doing is showing you the severity of the different alerts that you should be notified as. The lowest level here at green means that there's not much going on in that field at that time. And if you notice, red would be that's a high level alert that we should pay attention to. Then you get into the alert function there. And I'll let it load here a minute. What it's going to show you is, again, that color scale, but I want to show you the list form. This is really nice to prioritize your fields, to be able to show when things need attention and kind of direct you to where you need to go. So since I don't have any fields picked here, it's kind of all not showing anything. Let's go back to the home screen. I can then click on these fields here, or I can click on these alert tiles, and they'll bring up the fields that represent under that alert. I'm going to go ahead and do the field option. Again, if anyone has questions, concerns, stop me and we can get into it. But this field here, we'll just randomly click on this one. You'll notice when we get into it, it'll bring us right to the field and the most recent date, which is really nice because then you don't have to filter through what you've already looked at. But for this instant, we do want to go back and kind of look at what has happened in this field. On the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see that these little buttons here, there's 4 different options. The one at the bottom is going to show layers. What we call layers are basically our data analytic options that come through the sensor. Like RGB is the way you would see it with your naked eye, looking down out of the plane. NDVI, which is, I think it's normalized different vegetative index or something. CIR, here we'll click through them as well. CIR is colored infrared. And then your topography map, which I believe is a new addition. You might be surprised to see that we now have topography in your satellite option. So as you notice, there's some changes here in the field, and I would like to kind of exemplify those. We can go and do a side-by-side comparison screen. You're then able to start to make these comparisons over the course of the year to find where problems start, where they stop, what caused them, things of that nature. Do an NDVI on the one side. Notice there's a scale here. It's very, very close in like the tolerances, I would say. So we're picking up on minute changes in the field that maybe not even the naked eye could see. Over here, we'll change it to the 12th. And keep in mind, this is a demo, so not the entire field story is on here. There's just pieces that we wanted to bring attention to kind of tell that story. So in this area, you notice the top of the field here is not as healthy. as it progresses through the season, it starts to get a little better, but you start asking yourself, well, why is this struggling, or why was it falling behind? We have a few tools that can help you kind of data mine or answer these questions for you. One of which would be, in this case, topography. I noticed this lays wet, and that could be kind of the culprit of why it was struggling later, or why it's maybe holding water. This is dry up here, so that actually explains why it's continuously falling behind. You go back to the NDVI, you can see that progression there. If you wanted to get into go field truth this example, you can then go to the scouting app, scouting portion, I should say, which you can find here with the binoculars. Makes it really nice to be able to zone in on a certain spot of the field. You drop a pin, say what's going on. In this aspect, you could say maybe the stand count was not great. Drop a picture. It'll say where you're at the growth stage because of GDDs of your planting date. And you can even put in your stand count right there. It'll showcase it very easily, just like this. So if you wanted to go back and reflect on it later, at a later date, you can see these are the areas of interest. You can even open the report and see kind of what happened, what was going on at that time. So, okay, so I have a couple more examples, but they're, like I said, they're in Canada. Let's take a moment here before I go on to those and get some housekeeping questions before I continue. Does anyone have
good call
top of mind questions?
Yeah, we do have a question from Eric Pateman. His question is, this info comes from program, not from scouting?
So as I understand the question, let me go back into this. The analytics behind this kind of drove us to the area of interest, right? So on a day-to-day basis, you're going to be using this to what I would say is virtually scout, but it won't answer all the questions for you. It'll identify areas of interest. So as we saw on the NDVI map, we were interested in this zone and this higher zone to see why it was lacking in health. Then you ground truth it, or a scout goes out and a farm manager goes out, and it has those tools to then kind of label what was going on. So two-part answer to your question is yes. Some of it comes from the app. Some of it comes from human interaction. We believe that with clear insights, it helps drive that person to the point and makes it a lot faster. Does that answer that question clearly?
Maybe just to take a step back there to Demetrius and Eric, the question there, just to clarify. So what this kind of system and program is doing is we would take about 10 images throughout the season, about once every week, starting potentially with a bare soil before the crop emerges. And then a lot of programs out there have high resolution or imagery that you can view. We have that in Trimble and Farmer's Edge and many different, programs out there. But what makes Intelinair a little bit different is it has some of these emergence algorithms and weed alerts and yield alerts that will help identify what areas of the field are an issue and that you should go and check. And so it just can help you identify some of those issues maybe before you see them yourself, and just knowing where to go. Typically we don't have to cover every acre on the farm. There's probably 20 or 30% of the acres in the fields that have some issues going on, right? So just that's kind of the premise of the program, and we'll have a few more other examples to share from our own experience as well after Dimitri has done his thing here. So
Yeah, no, Terry, that was a good point. I kind of forgot to include that was, there's 10 flights in a season, and that really helps you to be able to see start to finish and answer some of those questions as the year progresses, but also it will hold your data for historical value as well. You can look back year to year and then track those changes as you make those management decisions. So,
Does that answer your question, Eric?
Yeah, no, it bang on there. Just question the 10 flights. How are they time-wise chosen? Just crop staging or GDUs?
Yeah, I would say kind of all of the above, really. It's they're kind of predetermined based on the scheduling. Basically, we're given a window of opportunity. There's 10 opportunities in the season. We try to space them out as it makes sense to capture different stages of that crop. GDDs is one way of driving that decision. The other kind of variance that we try to play on is weather and cloud cover. So with that, we try to pick the most optimal day. So you might see a little bit of a variation between field to field, but as it makes sense and you would expect your crop to be changing throughout the season is basically how we've come to that decision.
Yeah, and Eric, just to add, so essentially we will partially help set the parameters of when those images would start, and kind of for our areas that we're working in, we're not necessarily going to adjust it by crop, but so ideally, again, we want to have that first image kind of as bare soil with the snow gone, and maybe before the first weeds start greening up or emerging, and then normally they'd stack a few more kind of images closer together through that critical kind of like emergence and herbicide early kind of season, and then maybe spread them out a little bit more as we get a little bit later in the season. But essentially that's part of us working together with Intelinair to try to optimize the timing of the flights as best we can. And there is some weather and stuff that you have to deal with, and maybe Demetrius is going to get to this later, but just to clarify as well, what we're working with now is the satellite carrier. And now it's just eluding me, of course, when I want to talk about it, but is Airbus. So we're working exclusively with Airbus this year in Intelinair areas, and that's a 50 centimeter resolution. So that's actually higher resolution than Planet Labs and some of the other ones. We did a bit of work with another satellite company last year, and there was some issues with that. They switched to Airbus later on in the season and had really good experience with the quality and the delivery of the images. And that's what I believe they're going to be working with this year, correct?
Yep, you're correct on that one. Absolutely. So I think now if there's no more questions, I do have a couple more to jump into so we can kind of tackle what we're capable of finding in the fields. Let me go ahead and share the screen again. This one is going to be a Canada example. So me just jumping in, I guess, can everyone see this before I make a second mistake?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, good. All right, so me jumping into these before trying to figure out a couple things to point out in these, as I don't scout these on a daily basis, obviously. So if anyone knows the situation a little better than me, just let me know. But the things I wanted to point out was one is, and this example is a weed example. So one thing you can count on is that we can identify the zones in which the weeds start and as they persist throughout the season. Notice in this example, you can see at the top of the screen here, it nicely locates and labels the amount of weeds that are in that field. So in maybe 100 to 200 acre field, you have 52 acres of weeds present. If you go ahead and actually just click on that, it'll change your layer to what we call as colored infrared. And what that's doing is picking up on biomass. And you can even see kind of with the naked eye, with the trained eye, you can start to see a couple higher zones of biomass accumulation, but the tool does it best and just highlights those areas perfectly to show where those weeds are in the field. Then it helps kind of prioritize which fields you need to go to first, and if there's any persistent weeds then after that application. So if you go ahead and turn off your alerts, sometimes you can see them. Like I was saying, in this area, you can see like a light red, some in this area, to show where the weed present actually is. It makes it easier to manage large amounts of acres if you can't get across them in one day. You can take, say, 30 fields and condense them into 5 fields that you want to go fact check for the day instead of spending your entire time out there. The next one we'll get into, whoops. Next one, I would like to kind of show the most integrated form of the app. So you can get integrated with a couple back-end technology sources that will allow you to have planting data, sprayer data, and even be able to showcase those on this level to show different varieties. So in this case, you can see this is a planting map where peas were planted. There's 2 different varieties here. We can actually show that just like that. I won't get into the actual clicking of what varieties they are because I try to keep that under wraps, but there are 2 different changes here. As you progress through the field, you can see, let's find a date. You can see that your weed level is starting to increase here. Let's see. There was an application made on the 7th. The 12th, I think, is where your weeds increase here to 22 as a peak. After the application, maybe it will start to drop to 15. So again, I'll show that as it loads here. I was going to show as the alert shows it and then watch it kind of diminish. I also have a few tabs open, so it might take a second here. Let's try a different route. So that's on the 16th. Let's see if the 12 will go again. There we go. So you notice your concentration from 22 acres here. You watch it diminish. So you can kind of fact check those applications. So it's decreasing. The other thing we can look at is your NDVI or your crop health value. And what I wanted to focus on was the difference between this variety and the other variety planted. As you progress through the season, then you can start to see as things change. So everything looks pretty healthy, consistent here. As you go through towards the end of the season, I noticed that you can see one variety starts to shut down a little bit sooner than the other. So this one over here looks a bit more red and there's more green present in those zones. So what that's telling me is this one was a shorter day and this one maybe was a longer day variety and greened up and stayed green for a little bit longer. So you can make those sort of assumptions throughout the process and kind of do hybrid comparisons, if you will. Do we have time for one more?
Yeah, I think we can do another quick one.
Okay. This one, actually, I wanted to do kind of like a interactive, what we all see as we kind of click through it. A couple things, I'll set the floor just to show what I was viewing. But maybe if anyone else wants to chime in and say a couple words, that would be just fine. I wanted to show There's a consistent planting across the entire field. Kind of disregard this right-hand side of the screen real quick. Consistent planting. We start here in June. I want to go to the NDVI. We can start to see something on this side as there's what I would call streaks in the field. And then I want to go later season. Let's say July 1. And then you can see it kind of exemplifies what's going on here. I wonder if I wanted to open the floor and see if anyone had ideas of what might be happening in this situation. If not, I think I can talk through it as well.
This was one of our fields, Demetrius, and the areas there, the red areas on the right-hand side, that was actually the drill, the seed tubes blocked up, and there's some mist strips there.
Are we talking bottom right here?
Bottom and the top. So the top was just like one section.
Okay.
And then by the time they got down to the bottom, it was getting just about the whole drill.
Okay.
Plugged up.
So see there, that's a really good example of something that we caught and can do better next time. How was this caught kind of late as we saw the imagery, or was it something that we caught early and then we're able to kind of fix?
Yeah, we got it fairly early, and we went in and reseeded those spots actually. So.
Oh, perfect. Was this an example that could have been? Is there any topography change here north to south?
Yeah, there is a bit, but.
Okay. I was curious if it was more of a topography thing, that these persisted a little bit longer and maybe laid wet, and then as the year progressed that it stayed greener longer. That was kind of my thought, but your explanation makes a little bit more sense. So I like your thoughts there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that's pretty much the gist of it that I had as a quick and dirty high level, what we can do and what the app is capable of. I would be very more than happy to dive into anything else that we have questions on, but I'd turn it back over to you and let you cover what you got to do.
Awesome, Demetrius. Yeah, I'll maybe share the screen in a few examples, and so some of them are the same, but just I'll go through this pretty quick. So can everybody see my screen now as well? We good there? Yes, no, maybe so.
Yes, yeah, looks good, Terry.
We're good.
Yeah, so this is an example that Demetrius used earlier on here, and this is one of our fields was seeded to peas, was barley last year, and you'll see there's kind of a line here on the left-hand side, and that's actually where we had a bit of our precision AI testing plot that fall. And so we actually sprayed the whole field with glyphosate in the fall, except for this area. And then we had gone in and sprayed that in the spring. And normally, I would lean to believe that, a good fall application of glyphosate gets you better weed control. But we can see from the images in the weed alerts here that we did have more weeds in the area that was sprayed in the fall. So maybe it was sprayed a little bit later when it was a little bit cooler and wasn't as effective. But there's a pretty clear difference here between the timing of the glyphosate application from spring to fall. And it's just one of those things. This is one of the kind of more unique weed alerts that we saw, and helps us just evaluate management practices as well. So that was one of the examples that was pretty interesting. Here's just another one where the weed alerts was picking up again, where there's some foxtail barley. And so as we continue to move forward with weed resistance and those kind of things and rotations, knowing where your problem weeds are and there's a lot of new chemistry that's coming out, residual chemistry that is pretty valuable, but a lot of those chemistries are pretty expensive. They can be $20 to $30 an acre, and typically they're probably really only needed on a very small percentage of the field, not the whole entire field. So there's a lot of dollars that can be saved having this type of information. Here again, this is another example of just where the wild oat patches were in the field, and we could take this information and put on Avidex in the fall, or go back in with a second application just in those areas versus spraying the whole field. Again, some significant savings that could be had there. Here's an example again where we had some high flea beetle pressure coming in from the east side of this field, and we've seen that this area was kind of getting overrun by beetles, flea beetles, and we were able to come in and just make an application in this area. And these are all things that, we can catch if we're in the field all the time. But again, if we have technology like this, I think it helps target where we're going and maybe catch some things before you might see them or before it's too late. Not in every case, but that's kind of the premise of what we're trying to do. And again, here's another field example just where, there's some change detection there, and beetles were coming into the edges of the field, and it was picked up on the imagery. The other thing that, so there's a few alerts that, we'll be mainly focusing on with the satellite, and that's so emergence, poor emergence, or if there's uneven emergence due to dryness or cutworms or whatever it may be, we should get some alerts there. And then the weed alerts, and then also the yield risk. So this is kind of an interesting, this whole field was peas. This half had peas probably 7-8 years ago, and this quarter didn't have any at all. And we did see some root rot come in. So this quarter hadn't had peas probably in its entire life, and there still was some root rot in the lower areas, but you could see there was a lot more root rot. And here's just an image of the field that the guys had collected. And so, yeah, it just definitely shows the difference there. And again, it's just maybe kind of a long-term management practice or strategy, picking up, how those things affect the crop overall. Again, here's just another example of some weed alerts where there was some sandier ridges. And of course, last year with it being a bit dry, some of these places were starting to burn up. So, I mean, if you still had enough moisture for a fungicide application, these areas you'd want to just shut it off or not invest any more dollars there, and just know what's going on. Again, here, this is just an example in a canola field. I can't remember what this was. I think there was some suspect of some nutrient deficiency, either sulfur or boron here. I can't remember, but just kind of showing you where the problem areas in the field are and which fields have the most concern. And here's just another example of a couple fields that were combined. This bottom field was not min-tilled or zero-tilled until we started farming it a year or so ago. And this was barley. And so early in the season, this area was lighter and sandier, and it kind of started off a lot greener and lusher than the normal field, I guess. But as the year went on, the normal field with the trash on it and stuff kind of carried through a bit better, and this one burnt out. And it was kind of interesting here. I don't have the yield data on this, but my son Holden was out rolling our pea fields, and this was right across the yard from the pea field, and he went over here and just started rolling this field, not realizing that it was barley, seeded to barley. And he rolled up to here and then pulled out of the field. And you can definitely see that rolling activity had a positive effect with the drier spraying of the emergence of the crop. So that was just kind of interesting. And I haven't got the yield data off this yet, but it was just an interesting observation. Here's just an example of one thing that we haven't touched on, but if you have My John Deere, there is APIs, and it can pull all of your application data automatically into the platform as well. So this is just an example where we went and put on a couple strips of urea, higher rates of urea with the spreader in a barley field. And this top application really showed up very well. And the bottom application did not. But what I think actually happened here is you can see the application here is kind of this full square, but it kind of runs out here. And I think I just had a little bit left in the spreader and I wanted to go out and put the trial out, and it was dark at night. I think I actually ran out of urea right here. And I'm thinking that's why it didn't show up, even though it thought it was applying. The tank was empty. But again, when we can bring in the various different application layers, we can really start to see different things that are going on. And then here's just that variety example that was shared. And I think that's it there. So just a couple examples there. So I think, you know, what we're interested in and excited about the future potential here is just, you know, having better information to know what's going on in your field. We love to go out and scout and help our customers out, but we also know that it's hard to be everywhere all the time. And as inputs get more costly, not only do we have all the layers of analytical data and alerts and information to help us make better management decisions in season and long term, there should be a fair bit of opportunity to use this data for variable rate fungicide maps, which we've done a lot of in the past, targeted, you know, herbicide applications, top dressing of nutrients if need be, identifying nutrient deficiencies, even things like desiccation of the crop, right, on peas or different things like that. We only really have to hit the areas that we need it. And when we're looking at, you know, $20-$30 kind of application costs, it doesn't take much of many acres of savings to really put a fair amount of dollars in your pocket. So yeah, and last year I forgot, sorry, I didn't really introduce any of our team here at the start of the call, but we've got, you know, Megan, our operations manager, with us, and Deanna, one of our precision agronomists, and Garrett Frazier, who worked with us last year on the Intelinair project and a few other things with the precision project. But we're hoping that if we get the interest in the program, that we're going to have Garrett work as kind of the quarterback for the program and our clients, providing service and overseeing what's going on and providing the training and support. So one thing that we recognized last year is that like anything new, it's kind of important to learn and understand the value, and there's some of that takes a bit of time. And so what we're really wanting to do this year is kind of build into the offering that person that's kind of overseeing the accounts and watching when the imagery comes in and making sure everything's kind of where it should be, and helping inform you of some of the alerts and where to go, and ideally even maybe making a visit or two to the farm for some training and some feedback. And so we got Garrett on the call today. I think he's, you know, slipped out of school and feeding cows and whatever else he had to do today. But Gary, why don't you just share a little bit about your experience with the program last year, and you've been able to see a lot of the improvements that they're making for this year, and just, you know, what your thoughts are on it.
Sure, thanks, Terry. Hello, everybody. I'm Garrett. I did a lot of work with Intelinair last summer on the research and development side of it, generating a lot of the use cases Terry went over. Most of those use cases that we had talked about in this call, I had gone out and ground truthed them myself. So everything that you've seen is quite accurate, and the improvements Intelinair has made to the app is great for a year of growth. And from the standpoint of the app's use, it's become a lot more user friendly, a lot more easy to navigate. Even if, for example, if I'm going over the app with you, or if you want to use it yourself, it's a lot easier. From the use case standpoint, I noticed that the yield risks and stuff, there's a lot more for what I'm trying to say is, by using things like MyJD and using the Ops Center and uploading your as applied data, you can make a lot more decisions now, especially using this 50 centimeter resolution. We can get better quality images this year. And I think especially, we didn't touch much on like pre-harvest and desiccation. Terry touched on a little bit. I think especially last year from what we saw with the early dry down of crops, drought conditions, we can see through the NDVI especially that things are your pre-harvest is easily detected. Especially with the flea beetle example. I love that example. I scouted that field personally, and from an emergence standpoint, we were confused at first, and eventually once we got out in the field, we started noticing the damage and picked it up right away, and we took care of it. And especially from the yield risk side, everything was very accurate in the way. It was very accurate with in detecting especially weeds and pests. Especially I was pleasantly surprised actually when we saw pest damage, especially you don't see it late in season with the bugs that you get with your Lygus and stuff based off of the NDVI because the crop's drying down. Other than that, I think the product itself is improved immensely, and we will I'm excited to use it and work with everybody and help coach you through it all. I guess that's all I really got for you, Terry.
Thanks, Garrett. Yeah, so I think we're going to leave a bit of time for some questions, but what we're looking to move forward with in 2022 is this offering for those that are interested. We did about 50,000 acres, just over 50,000 acres with the program last year, and that was kind of the first beta run. And we learned a lot, and there's been some significant improvements made, which we're pretty excited about. And so this year, the offer, what we're thinking it's going to look like is probably going to be around $350 an acre. Of course, with scale and efficiencies of grids, and there's a lot of things behind the scenes that can change that. Now that we're working solely with Airbus, it's that high resolution at that 50 centimeters, and it is a bit of a premium product. So there's a little bit of additional costs there. And as well, what we're looking to do this year is to have that little bit extra support kind of built into the offering. So what we recognize, like anything new, it takes a bit of time to learn. And if you don't, kind of have that coaching and oversight, you may not get the value that you should. And we all get busy as farmers during the growing season, can get distracted. And so we think that's going to add a lot of value to have, our team working with your team and making sure everything is the way it should be. Again, of course, depending on the amount of acres and more importantly, kind of where those acres are located within the grids that we're purchasing for satellite imagery will depend on the efficiency. So we might, we should be able to get that cost a little bit lower in some cases. And for those that worked with us last year, there will be some additional discounts or offering there as early adapters. So that's kind of just a bit of an overview there, and we're here just to kind of share this with everyone on the call and the recordings afterwards. We're looking to kind of see what kind of interest we have for this next season, as we're going to have to start working at getting our boundaries in and start looking at the grids and getting everything in place so we're ready for the spring season. And so with that, I think we can kind of open up the floor to any questions or discussion or comments. If everyone's a little shy there, I know I see Chris Marley is on the call. I'm not sure if he's still here or not, but
You pick
Chris
on
is-
anybody? What did
Yeah.
you think, Chris? Did you have any comments or questions? Not to put you on the spot, but we're putting you on the spot.
I don't think I have any questions at this time, but I mean, comments, I mean, I think I see value in for sure in what we were doing. You know, like we had a few growing pains last year with the first year. But, you know, definitely saw some advantage of what we were doing. You know, some of the pictures, some of the resolution wasn't very good. We had some cloudy days there when they were taking satellite photos. So we didn't get a good read on some of our fields, but some of the stuff that we did see, we saw definitely some weed issues that we were able to go on ground truth and so, yeah, I believe in the program. I think as we get it a little bit better, it'll be very helpful going forward as we learn a little bit more about it and how to use the program a little better.
Good. Thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And I think there's a question from William here too about what the different acronyms mean and the different layers, and also why there was multiple images, you know, on the same day. And so we can just touch on that, much like Chris alluded to. So last year, when we started with the program, I forget the company, I think it was Skywatcher that we were working with originally, or Intelinair was. And they had some issues with the delivery of the images. So they came in late, or they weren't, in some cases they came in late or were not geo-referenced properly right away. And there was just some various different issues there, just kind of stumbling blocks initially. And that's why you'll see some days have 2 or 3 dates on the same day. It's really the same image, but just they had to resend a couple times to get it right. And then once Intelinair recognized this wasn't exactly going as they had planned, they quickly started working with Airbus a little later in the season, and that's why they're working with Airbus this year, is because you know, Airbus is a little bit more money, but the quality and the consistency and the timeliness of the turnaround has been way better, and that's kind of where we need to be. So I think that, you know, from what I've seen here so far, you never know for sure exactly, but I think a lot of those stumbling blocks and issues that we had last year are going to be resolved moving forward here. So we're fairly confident about that. But maybe Dimitri, you want to just jump in and touch on the acronyms there a bit again, or?
Yeah, I guess specifically I'll just go through the list. Your RGB is red, green, blue. I could eye without any lens on it. NDVI would be normalized difference vegetative index. Basically, in a nutshell, we'll just make this really quick and easy. It's a reflectance coming back from your crop to show the quality, if you and the crop health. So that's a really good field flourishing, or is this area struggling type of deal. You get into the CIR, which is colored infrared. There's a couple different, I would say, forms of infrared imaging. There's like a near infrared and a far infrared. So basically,
Sorry,
in a nutshell, this is doing is picking up. It's basically showing the skeleton of the crop. My breaking up.
We're having a lot of problems with you breaking up there, Demetrius. If you could just type in what the icons mean or what the acronyms mean into the chat, that'd probably be more effective at this point. You're breaking up past the point of us being able to hear what you're saying.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and so I just think to go from there. Yeah, we'll clarify what those mean there, William. And I guess just where I see this as of an interest to us and our clients in the future is just, yeah, keeping an eye on that valuable crop out there, keeping your eye on the prize is something that's going to be more important. I see this as a potential really good fit for a few different scenarios. Very large farms, very large acres where there's a huge amount of things to monitor, and it's just hard to get around everything. But even for smaller farms as well that maybe don't have someone scouting their fields, or don't have the time to scout all the fields as much as they would like to, having this information to kind of open up in the morning, grab your coffee, look at the computer, see what's going on, and figure out the 20 or 30% of the farm that actually matters or something is going on, and focusing your time there versus, you know, doing this kind of archaic W zigzag across the field to try to find every issue, right? It's really not that efficient of a way to do that. And we've worked with a lot of other imagery programs and offerings before. A lot of these things are free, but when you start getting 10 or 5 or 10 images on the field, like, you know, to scroll through each one and try to look at the differences and figure out what's going on, it's a very cumbersome, not a very effective process. So I think that having these alerts and algorithms, and they continue to improve over time. We've been watching this company for quite a while. We almost worked with them about 4 or 5 years ago with the planes here in Canada, but it just didn't work. But we know the traction that they're getting in the US. I don't know, Dimitri, if you know how many acres and kind of the growth that you're going to be looking at this year, but it's been pretty significant. And I think the environment that we're in, and the opportunity that we have ahead of us, I think we're going to see more tools like this. And Rob Sykes, on the board of Intelinair, he's been on the board for quite a while, and an investor as well. And we just feel, from what we've looked at, Intelinair is kind of leading the industry with this type of technology. And yeah, so we're excited to see where it goes, and if we can continue to work with Intelinair. They've been really great to work with so far, and I think they want to continue working with us to improve the product and bring more value to the market.
Anyone else have any comments? Daniel Fox, I'm gonna allow you to talk. You got, I'll put him on the spot too, I guess. I don't know if you had any comments to share. Daniel?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Just kind of seeing it for the first time, so just tuning in and enjoy it. And kind of cool that's starting to do some work on the back end and maybe kind of send you alerts. So that's kind of neat, but yeah, just seeing it for the first time. So
How many acres do you want, Daniel? Let's get real here. Let's be real.
well, I lost the recording for a few minutes when Terry was talking, so I don't know if I missed the big pitch there, but
Yeah, where's the big pitch here? What's the dealio here?
no,
I appreciate you joining, Daniel.
Yep.
Dimitri, can you comment or maybe put in the chat how many acres was Intelinair on in the US last year, and how many do they expect to be on, or what are they targeting this year?
He said they have a big storm going on there, so it might be a little bit difficult to get it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to answer on the chat.
We can hear you now. It's probably
You
easier to
can?
get your bandwidth
Okay.
with the audio, so go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay, well, I would say we're projected for a 50% growth. We went from, let's just say in Indiana, in my state, we went from probably 1 million to now we're going roughly 2.8 million acres of flight. That's about how the whole company is.
Yeah, I think
I would say,
last,
yeah, 50%.
I think last year they were around 4 million acres total in the US, I believe, somewhere in there. And I know you guys have been experiencing some pretty significant growth with the product getting some serious traction in the current market too. And so yeah, anyways, that's kind of where we're at. So we
I
just
think
kind of
part
want
of that,
go ahead.
Terry, I just think part of that is as we're all experiencing, the times are kind of changing a little bit on us, and manpower is not as plentiful as it used to be, and it kind of alleviates that of frustration. So that aerial imaging kind of makes everyone's life a little easier. And also you can scout at night, if you will. So rain delays don't really exist. And you could do it on your own time, if you will, and kind of prioritize your next day, your next week. It's a really good tool for time management and viewing those management changes over the years. So yeah, there's a lot of traction there coming, and we hope to grow more and service the acres in the best way possible. I think that's one thing that this company does really well is we listen to our customers and we hear them out to what they need and try to tailor that product to develop in that way. So
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks everyone for taking the time.
We had one more question here, Terry. It looks like from William Pallister. So are the images available only from the flights, or do they have lower resolution satellite maps between flights to fill any gaps?
You want to answer that, Demetrius?
I can, Terry. I would almost prefer you take that approach because, I mean, it's a two-part answer, I would say, on my end.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure, to be honest. I know you can import whatever layers or images that you want, and I would assume you could pull in lower resolution satellite images if you want, but I'm not sure those images would work within the algorithms. Like, I don't think they would provide any advantage. I'm just making an assumption reading between the lines here, but I'm pretty sure that lower resolution would not work with the algorithms, and it probably wouldn't really provide a lot of additional value. But I don't know, am I on the mark there, Demetrius?
You are, Terry. Actually, it's an option in the States, and that's why I didn't want to overspeak. It is an option in the States, or was for 21. What we're noticing moving forward into 22 is it's a good space holder, but to be able to manipulate those analytics, the opportunities just aren't there. And we didn't want to put out lower quality if it wasn't being valued. So I think that's kind of where that decision lied. But again, it's been done in the past, but I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah. So with that, I think we appreciate everybody taking the time. We didn't want to get too long in the tooth on this call, but wanted to get the information out there. And if you have any interest at all, let us know. And we probably will be reaching out to those that are on the call just to get their feedback and their thoughts. And if they have any interest, all we really need is your boundaries. Garrett would probably be reaching and reaching out and working with you. We just need to get your boundaries. We can get them into the system. And this also is not something that, of course, whole farm provides some efficiencies and those kind of things, but it's also something where we could work with a section of the farm. There's certain grids and certain amount of acres that we need within that grid in order to make the cost viable and the numbers work, but there is some flexibility there. So the easiest thing, if you have any interest, is just to get us your boundaries, and then we can get back to you with a little bit more nailed down costs or quote and go from there. So, and yeah, I think as Demetrius alluded to, that was probably one of the key things I wanted to mention, but I forgot. As we continue to move forward, labor is going to be a bigger issue on farms, and for even getting agronomists to scout all your fields and those kind of things. And so I think we need to keep looking at tools, utilizing tools, technology, and AI to create those efficiencies and to save us time and make sure we're doing things in the most efficient manner. So thanks everybody for the time today, and looking forward to seeing where this goes.